first, watch this very carefully.
The Pentagon released the UFO files a few weeks back, and we just found out over 1 billion people have visited the site. 1 billion. It's got to be a record. The War Department says more files will be released soon. UFO experts and top researchers have been investigating aliens for years. Their sources say dozens of crashed UFOs have been recovered, and what they found inside? Shocking.
And do people think that there's one type of non-human intelligence that's visiting the Earth, or is there many, many types?
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
there are at least 4 types, 4 separate types. Now, I have not had direct access to that, but I believe the people who I talked to.
4 different types of life.
4 different types of life.
4 different species of aliens. Another scientist called them Greys, Nordics, Insectoids, and Reptilians. All of them have 2 arms and 2 legs, just like us. Experts speculate the reptilians are scaly with long tails like a lizard. Insectoids look like a praying mantis. The Greys look like your classic movie alien, and the Nordics look like a regular Swedish guy, but 7 feet tall. We haven't seen the evidence, but Pete Hegseth says more evidence is coming, and there are a lot of believers in Congress.
You heard it. Fox News just sat an anchor down on camera and said, without flinching, that the United States government has recovered non-human bodies from crashed craft. Not 1 type, 4 types. And that over 1 billion people have already visited the government's UAP disclosure website. Let that land for a second. This is not a Reddit thread. This is not a podcast in someone's garage. This is not a guy with a telescope and a conspiracy blog. This is Fox News. And if they're saying it openly on prime time, then ask yourself one question. What do they know that made them comfortable enough to say it? Stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through is going to change the way you see everything. Let's start up here. Let's start with what actually happened. The United States government, the same government that for 80 years called you a lunatic for even asking the question, quietly released a batch of UAP files, and the response was so enormous that over 1 billion people flooded the disclosure website. 1 billion people. That's not curiosity, that's a species waking up. Now, I've been watching this space for years, and I've seen things come and go. I've seen videos debunked, whistleblowers silenced, researchers discredited. I've watched careers get destroyed and reputations get shredded for daring to ask questions the government didn't want asked. But this is different. This isn't a leak. This isn't a lone whistleblower running scared. This is a sitting administration, actively, publicly, ordering the declassification of evidence related to non-human intelligent life. The President of the United States issued a directive in the middle of February instructing all federal agencies to hand over their evidence of UAP and non-human intelligent life. And what happened next tells you everything you need to know. The agencies pushed back, every single one. Think about that. The President of the United States gave a direct order, and the agencies said no. Or at best, slow-walked it, dragged their feet, did everything short of refusing outright. Ask yourself, what do people protect that hard? Power, secrets, and things that, if released, cannot be taken back. Now here's where it gets heavy, really heavy. Because what's being discussed publicly right now, on mainstream television, is something that researchers in this community have been saying for 30, 40, 50 years. And they were laughed at for it, the claim. Multiple species of non-human intelligent life have been recovered from crashed craft on American soil. Not 1 type, not the classic little grey alien from your movie posters. 4 distinct types, according to sources who spoke to people involved in these recovery programs. And this has now been said on record, on camera. There are at least 4 separate categories of non-human beings that the government has had contact with. They've been described as follows. The Greys. The ones we've all seen depicted in pop culture for decades. Large heads, dark eyes, small frame. Humanoid, but distinctly not human. You've seen this image your whole life and never asked why it was so consistent across cultures, across decades, across continents. Now you know why. The Nordics. Tall, remarkably human in appearance. 7 feet or more. Think Scandinavian features but scaled up, enhanced. These have reportedly been described by multiple independent sources over the years. People who had no contact with each other in nearly identical terms. The insectoids. Beings that apparently resemble a praying mantis in structure, jointed limbs, complex eyes. something that evolution on this planet took a completely different path to arrive at, but got there nonetheless. And the reptilians, scaly, long tails, lizard-like. Now, before you roll your eyes, I know what you're thinking. I know how that sounds. But here's what's interesting. This description has appeared in ancient texts, in indigenous oral traditions, in recovered testimonies from military personnel across multiple countries, across cultures that never talk to each other. Coincidence? All of them. And here's the thing that really gets me. Every single one of these, 4 completely different biological types, reportedly shares one common trait with us. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry. Is that because life everywhere in the universe tends toward that structure? Or is there something else going on? Something about the origins of life on this planet that we haven't been told? I'm not going to give you answers to that tonight.
How many of these crashed crafts do you estimate there are that human beings have recovered?
More than 10.
More than 10?
More than 10.
How many of them are in possession of people in the United States?
I meant more than 10 in possession of the United States.
What about worldwide?
Worldwide?
Do we have any data on that?
We have data, but it's classified. There's no way to really talk about it.
But so there's more, though. You
Yeah,
could safely say it's not just the ones in the United States.
Not just the ones in the United States.
But I want you to sit with that question, because the people inside these programs, people who have apparently seen these bodies, work near this technology, they're not crazy, they're military, they're scientists, they're clearance-holding government employees, who, according to those now coming forward, were told to stay silent under threat. One researcher described a potential interview subject who backed out days before filming. The message they sent back: after further consideration and long talks with my wife, I decided I'd be forfeiting my life if I participated. Forfeiting my life. That's not hyperbole. That's a specific choice of words from someone who knew exactly what they meant. 80 years. Let's just acknowledge that number for a second. 80 years of active suppression. 80 years of calling researchers crazy. 80 years of institutional ridicule deployed as a weapon against anyone who got too close to the truth. Think about how much effort that takes. Think about the infrastructure required to maintain that kind of silence across administrations, across decades, across political parties. This wasn't incompetence. This was coordination. And now we're starting to understand why. It's power, pure and simple. The people who have controlled this information, and we're not talking about publicly elected officials, we're talking about people deep inside agencies, defense contractors, compartmentalized black budget programs. These people have accumulated something that almost no one in history has ever had. Knowledge of something that rewrites everything. Rewrites science. Rewrites religion. Rewrites geopolitics. Rewrites the entire story of what we are and where we came from. And knowledge like that, that's the ultimate leverage, the ultimate currency. Of course they don't want to give it up. There's also the credibility problem, because think about what disclosure actually means for the institutions that ran the cover-up. It means admitting that for 80 years the United States government, and by extension governments around the world, looked the American people in the eye and lied. Lied while researchers lost their careers. Lied while veterans came home with experiences they couldn't explain and were told they were mentally unwell. Lied while a dozen scientists, a dozen, either went missing or died under circumstances that have never been fully explained. Now, is that connected? Officially, no one is saying so. But the pattern is there. And patterns mean something. There's also a third reason for the secrecy that's at least somewhat understandable. If you tell the American people what you know, you're also potentially telling China, Russia, every adversary on the planet. If the technology recovered from these craft has been reverse engineered in any capacity, disclosing that opens up strategic vulnerabilities. But here's the counter to that, and it's a strong one. Our adversaries already know. They've been watching the same skies. They've had their own encounters. They know we're not alone in the universe. Saying it out loud doesn't give them anything they don't already have. The secrecy, at this point, serves one group of people. The people holding the secret. But here's what's different now. Here's why this moment, right now, today, feels unlike anything we've seen before. The disclosure is already in motion, and it cannot be stopped. Members of Congress have gone on record, not anonymous sources, not researchers on the fringe. Sitting members of the United States Congress have stated publicly that they have seen evidence inside classified briefings that they cannot explain. that they have observed things of, quote, non-human origin. Pete Hegseth has said it. Members of the House Intelligence Committee have said it. And now a House committee specifically focused on declassifying federal secrets has confirmed that approximately 40 additional UAP videos will be declassified within the next 30 days. 40 more videos on top of what's already out. And beyond that, senior members of the cabinet are reportedly going agency by agency, military branch by military branch, actively hunting for the most significant evidence so it can be evaluated for declassification. This is not a slow leak anymore, this is a controlled flood. And whoever is holding the dam is losing the fight. Now I want to be real with you for a second, because I think you deserve that. Not everything that comes out will be clean. Not everything will be the smoking gun moment. There will be blurry videos. There will be ambiguous documents. There will be bureaucratic language specifically designed to say everything and nothing at the same time. And in 2025, there's a new problem layered on top of all of this. Even if they released a crystal clear photograph of a non-human being recovered from a crash site, a huge portion of the population would immediately say it was AI generated. Think about what that means. Think about how perfectly that plays into the hands of people who want this buried. In an age where nothing digital can be fully trusted, the truth, even when it's presented directly, can be dismissed as fake. That's the trap we're in. And it's a trap that conveniently benefits the people who have been lying to us for 80 years. But here's what cannot be faked. The pattern of behaviour, the institutional resistance. The careers were destroyed, the whistleblowers silenced. The members of Congress speak carefully, deliberately, about things they cannot explain. You don't build that kind of machine to cover up nothing. Let's zoom out for a moment. If even a fraction of what is being said is true, if there are recovered craft of non-human origin, if there are recovered beings, if there is technology sitting in classified hangars that didn't come from any country on this earth, then we have to ask the big question. What does this mean for humanity? Because this isn't just a political story. This isn't just about government transparency. This is a civilizational moment. If we are not alone, and it increasingly appears that we are not, then every framework we have built to understand our place in the universe needs to be re-examined. The scientific establishment has operated on the assumption that life on Earth is a statistical anomaly, that we are the product of billions of years of unique, unrepeatable circumstances. If other intelligent life not only exists but has visited, and if that life has been recovered and studied, then our entire understanding of biology, evolution, and the development of consciousness needs to be rewritten. Religion, a lot of people worry about what disclosure means for faith, and I understand that instinct. But I'd push back gently. Every major religion in human history has grappled with the idea of beings greater than ourselves operating beyond our understanding. The specific theology may need updating, but the spiritual impulse, the sense that there is more to existence than what we can see, that doesn't go away. If anything, it gets vindicated. Think about what it means if the United States has had access to non-human technology for 80 years and has been quietly working to understand and potentially replicate it. What does that do to the balance of global power? What if other nations have had similar recoveries? What if the real space race, the one nobody's talking about, isn't about Mars? And personally, what does it do to you? To your sense of self, your sense of purpose, your sense of what matters? To know that we are one intelligent species among potentially several. I don't think it makes us smaller. I think if we're honest, it makes everything bigger. Let's come back to that number. 1 billion visits to the UAP disclosure site. 1 billion. That's not a niche. That's not a subculture. That's not a conspiracy theory corner of the internet. That is the human race, collectively, simultaneously saying, we want the truth. And the people who have been gatekeeping this information for generations are watching that number. And they know. They know the dam is breaking. They know the public appetite for this information is not going away. They know the next generation. People who have grown up in a world where UAP are acknowledged as real by the Department of Defense. They are not going to accept the old playbook of ridicule and silence. The momentum is real. And the fact that major mainstream media, Fox News, one of the most powerful media organizations on the planet, is now openly discussing recovered non-human bodies, multiple species, and government resistance to disclosure. That's not nothing. That's a signal. Networks like that don't put things on air that they think will blow back on them catastrophically. They read the room, and the room is ready. So where does this leave us? The files are being released. More are coming. 40 additional videos in the next 30 days, according to people with direct knowledge of the process. Congress members are talking. Whistleblowers are emerging. A filmmaker's documentary shook loose enough of this to be discussed in prime time on national television. The cover-up is not over, not by a long shot. There are still people inside agencies who are slow-walking this, still people fighting to protect secrets they've held for decades, still institutional inertia working against the truth. But the truth has a momentum of its own now, and I want to leave you with this. For decades, literally decades, people lost everything for asking the questions we're now watching congressmen ask on camera. Researchers were laughed at. Veterans were dismissed. Scientists went quiet or went missing. They were right. They were right all along. And the least we can do, the absolute least, is follow this wherever it leads. Ask every question. Demand every document. Watch every video. Because if we are not alone, and the evidence is now pointing harder in that direction than it ever has before, then this is the most important story in the history of our civilization. And you were here when it broke. If this video made you think, share it with one person who needs to see it. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of what's coming, because I promise you, we're really getting started. The next 30 days are going to change everything.